Welcome to today's webinar on the Naturalization Test Redesign Updates. My name is Ciro Paris-Gondola, and I'm the Assistant Chief of Policy with the Department of Homeland Security's Office of the Citizenship and Immigration Services Ombudsman. Today, we are pleased to host representatives from U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS. If you attended any of USCIS's recent webinars on the Naturalization Test Redesign, we will be covering some of the same information during the session. Members of the media are welcome to listen to today's engagement, but we ask that you contact the DHS Office of Public Affairs at mediainquiry@hq.dhs.gov or the USCIS Office of Public Affairs at media@uscis.dhs.gov with any questions or clarification of policy before finalizing publications. Similarly, if there are any congressional staffers on the line with us today, you may contact the DHS Office of Legislative Affairs at Congress to DHS, that's congress@hq.dhs.gov. Unfortunately, we will not have time to take live questions today. However, we encourage you to submit your questions, comments, or concerns in the live event Q&A or by email to our office at cisombudsman.publicaffairs@hq.dhs.gov. We will look at all the questions and share them with USCIS so that we may coordinate to address them as appropriate in future engagements or other communications. And now I'd like to introduce Nathan Stiefel, the acting CIS Ombudsman, for some opening remarks. Nathan.
Well, thank you, Ciro. And again, I just want to welcome everyone to today's session. Before we get started, I'd like to share just a brief overview of our office for those who may be unfamiliar with the services that we provide. The Office of the Citizenship and Immigration Services Ombudsman was created by Congress through the Homeland Security Act of 2002, now a little more than 20 years ago. Our office is within the Department of Homeland Security, but we are not part of USCIS. As such, we are not part of USCIS's deliberative policy and rulemaking process. As a confidential, impartial, and independent office, we have a unique threefold mission. First, we serve as an office of last resort. Through casework services, we help individuals and employers who need to resolve what's usually an exceptional problem with USCIS. Second, like today, we provide an ear to the public and engage with a full range of stakeholder groups, individuals, employers, and others who are invested in the immigration system. Our casework and stakeholder activities inform our third program area. We make recommendations, both formal and informal, to fix systemic issues in the immigration benefits system and to improve the quality of services provided by USCIS. You can read our most recent recommendations in our 2023 annual report to Congress, which we issued just a few weeks ago on June 30th. We're very pleased to convene today's session on USCIS's Naturalization Test Redesign Initiative. As you all know, in a December 2022 Federal Register notice, USCIS announced that it would conduct a nationwide trial of proposed changes to the current naturalization test. This trial will include changes to the English-speaking portion and the content and format of the civics portion of the naturalization test. Through a series of engagements in early 2023, USCIS invited the public to provide research, data, and comments on the trials. We recognize that any change to the naturalization test and its components can significantly impact individual applicants and the organizations who serve them. We also realize that stakeholders are continuing to share their suggestions and concerns with USCIS regarding this initiative, and we encourage you to do so, including sharing your questions and concerns with us today. The naturalization process and test lead to the ultimate privilege of our immigration system, U.S. citizenship, and any changes to the requirements should be carefully designed and implemented. We know USCIS wants to make sure that any changes are appropriate and carefully considered. Ongoing feedback from both individuals and organizations is extremely valuable to USCIS as it considers possible changes to the test, and to our office as we develop recommendations to help improve the administration of immigration benefits and strive to achieve our collective goal of ensuring that the naturalization process is accessible to all eligible individuals. Following this session, we will collect feedback received from all of you and share it with USCIS for consideration. With the agency's support, we're also planning to hold several small listening sessions over the summer to gather feedback about the proposed changes in a more informal setting. Through these engagements, we hope to better understand your concerns and relay them to USCIS. Again, I want to thank you all for your time today. And now I'd like to turn things back over to you, Ciro, to introduce our USCIS colleagues. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Nathan. And we are, of course, pleased to have our colleagues from USCIS here today to give us an update on this naturalization test redesign trial. Joining us today are Bertha Anderson, Deputy Chief of USCIS's Office of Citizenship, Partnership, and Engagement, that's OCPE, and Sean Chakrabarty, Education Program Specialist in OCPE. Thank you for joining us today. And to get us started, Bertha, could you please give us some background on why USCIS is looking into redesigning the naturalization test?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Ciro and the CIS Ombudsman, for the opportunity to collaborate with you on this joint webinar. I'm delighted to provide some context as to why USCIS decided to consider and pilot a redesign of the naturalization test. For those familiar with the naturalization test, the Biden administration rescinded the 2020 civics test because it had the potential to create barriers to naturalization. USCIS reverted to the 2008 civics test, which is being used around the country by the more than 1 million individuals applying each year for naturalization. Under Executive Order 14012, USCIS is committed to reducing barriers and is aware that the current naturalization process might create real and perceived barriers for those eligible to apply. Please note that according to the Immigration and Nationality Act, or INA, individuals must demonstrate an understanding of the English language, usually referred as the English test, and the American government and history, usually referred as the civics test. In fiscal year 2021, there was a 93.8 first-time pass rate for the civics test and a 94% first-time pass for the English-speaking test. Those failing the test mostly failed the English-speaking portion of the test. So there are several reasons for this other than the knowledge of the applicant. We have received the stakeholder feedback that the current English-speaking test can be difficult to prepare for because the USCIS officer can ask a range of questions on the Form N-400 application for naturalization. So applicants do not know which questions they might be asked. So we have also received feedback that in practice, the USCIS officer can engage in follow-up questions and might use vocabulary well above the ordinary usage required by the statute. As such, there is more USCIS can do to address these issues through additional training and guidance to our USCIS officers. So I want to assure you that we are exploring this. However, we also believe that changes to the test might also help address this feedback. Most countries with a language test administer the test separately from the eligibility interview. This allows those countries to administer a standardized language test, score a rubric, and permit applicants to know and understand exactly what to study and what to expect regarding their language skills and process. At this time, USCIS doesn't have a definition of ordinary usage, which is the level of English set under the Immigration and Nationality Act. Having a measurable standard and potentially decoupling the English test from the interview could potentially address the obstacles low literacy lawful permanent residents face in preparing and studying for the test. So our intent is to create a more fair, objective, and transparent process. As a result, when considering how to improve the test administration and reduce test anxiety barriers, USCIS decided to conduct a trial test using modern industry test development standards. And among other things, USCIS has created a technical advisory group, also referred as a TAG, with external subject matter experts. Also, we have invited evidence and data from the public. We have created a dedicated webpage for updates. We have dedicated a monitored mailbox for comments, and we have consulted with other countries on their innovations to test design and implementation to consider best practices in the field. USCIS is proposing the first phase of the trial test process take place in partnership with volunteers from over 230 schools, universities, community and faith-based organizations in 38 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico. We are grateful for the volunteers who reach out to us to express interest to be part of this trial test. And at this point, we started the coordination with the volunteering organizations regarding the training, so we are not accepting any further volunteers at this time. We hope stakeholders find the information useful. So back to you, Ciro. Thank you.
Thanks, Bertha. Now I would like to introduce Sean Chakrabarty, who will be giving an overview of the test design process. Sean is an education program specialist within the USCIS Office of Citizenship, Partnership, and Engagement. He's an educator in both K-12 and adult English as a second language settings. He holds an advanced degree in adult learning theory and is applying that theory as an active practitioner in the field, working with elderly, low literate, and vulnerable populations. Sean founded an adult education school in DC offering a wide range of wraparound services for immigrant families. He has designed standardized tests for federal citizenship education grant recipients, algorithms to modernize the current naturalization test, and published numerous educational products. Sean, could you give some further background and an overview on the trial tests?
Thank you, Ciro. Thank you, everyone. When USCIS first issued the Federal Register notice announcing the redesigned trial test process, we proposed an initial timeline. We're working to meet this timeline, but we will evaluate and adjust it at every stage of the process, given public feedback, technical advisory group feedback, operational requirements, and volunteer coordination considerations. Among other factors, briefly, here's the updated timeline that we have today. In June, we held the first round of technical advisory group meetings there. In July to September, at the next stage, we have the CBO trial scheduled there. After that, though, in October, there'll be a second round of technical advisory group reviews. In December, the technical advisory group will publish a report and test item recommendations for the second trial at USCIS field offices there with it. I can go on to the 2 rounds of the trial test now in the next slide. Thank you. There'll be 2 rounds or phases of trial tests. First, with community-based organizations later this year. We're using the term community-based organization in the broadest sense to include immigrant-serving organizations, libraries, adult education sites, museums, faith-based organizations. For this phase, we're coordinating efforts with 1,500 volunteer students with 233 CBOs, community-based organizations across the country. For the second phase, we're going to coordinate efforts at field offices likely to take place in 2024. If the agency decides to proceed along with the process. This is the parts of the external CBO trial test. For the CBO trial test, USCIS will trial test 2 parts of the naturalization test, a speaking trial test, a multiple choice civics trial test. The CBO trial test will have no impact on any N400 filed by the volunteer trial test participant, right? And the external CBO trial will not take place in field offices. For background, this is what our current speaking test is. Our current speaking test is based on the review of the Form N400 application for naturalization. This is the eligibility interview conducted by an officer, and it is based on the application form itself. To be clear, under this proposal, the Form N400 would not be used to assess speaking and understanding. Okay. USCIS would be assessing the understanding of English language speaking through questions or prompts given with the speaking test instead of using the interview questions of the Form N400. Images are very common in ESL, in English as second language assessments, especially with low literacy learners. Some examples common examples in the field include the BEST Plus 2.0 or TOEIC's Bridge assessment there. These are two examples of common ESL speaking tests that use images to assess speaking proficiency. Speaking tests generally utilize some kind of prompt or question to elicit an answer. These can be print, verbal, or image-based. For National Reporting System, also referred to NRS, Level 3, High Beginner, a picture prompt is common for speaking tests at that level. The content areas of the speaking trial test, these are derived from everyday topics and scenarios. The everyday topics align with statutory requirements of ordinary usage. These topics can commonly be found in adult ESL textbooks, in ESL assessments, and tag the technical advisory group of external subject matter experts will also review each of these content areas and make recommendations. Volunteer students will know exactly which content areas to study, exactly which images to study, and they will receive education resources there. Again, our goal is to collect data from 1,500 volunteer test takers across these 233 community-based organizations. Again, to recap, the current speaking test is based on the Form N400 and the eligibility interview. Our proposal for the trial test is a image-based speaking test that is separated from the interview. The teachers in the trial test, what an example of this could look like. The teachers in the trial test will give instructions before displaying the prompt and the picture. An image such like you see on your screen here today with it. The teachers can rephrase and repeat the prompt as needed. The teachers will also cover all of the content areas and images and practice with the students before they do the trial test. How will the speaking test speaking test be scored? Well, the trial speaking test will be scored based on responses containing relevant content vocabulary and simple words and phrases. This is only a trial test. Again, there's no passing or failing score for the trial test. That's here. Okay. And again, the external subject matter experts on the technical advisory group will also review the scoring rubrics and provide their recommendations there. USCIS is proposing using the National Reporting System, English as a Second Language Level 3, to align the test to the trial test to. This is aligned with the statutory requirements in INA 312, 8 CFR 312 for ordinary usage. This is the standard we're using to design the speaking test. The current reading and writing tests are already aligned to this level. Again, just an overview of the National Reporting System. The National Reporting System has these levels, and we're proposing to align it to the same level that the current reading and writing tests are at. Now I'd like to highlight a key definition or description of the NRS Level 3, right? Means NRS level 3 means the individual can understand common words, simple phrases, and sentences containing familiar vocabulary spoken slowly with some repetition. Individuals can respond to simple questions about personal everyday activities and can express immediate needs using simple learned phrases or short sentences. They also can exhibit limited control of grammar. Now, the second aspect of the external community organization trial test is the multiple choice civics trial test. So USCIS will conduct a trial test of a written multiple choice civics test. To give you a contrast again, the current civics test is an oral test. Here's an example of a current test item that is used today in the test. This is test number 48. That's there, right? The officer reads aloud the test prompt here. There are 4 amendments to the Constitution about who can vote. Describe one of them. That's delivered orally, and the study guide provides some possible correct answers, but there are other correct answers that an applicant may give. All right. All current civics questions and answers are available for the public to study. An applicant must get 6 out of 10 correct to pass, and this information is publicly available on our website. Okay. Multiple choice tests are commonly used in civics assessments. Some examples include the CASA's Government and History for Citizenship test. This is a common citizenship test that's used in many states with low literacy English proficiency learners. Also, citizenship tests of many other nations in the world, Australia, UK, Canada, employ multiple choice civics tests. What will the trial test look like for the civics, the trial civics test? So the civics trial test questions will use a multiple choice format. USCIS is creating a bank of multiple choice trial test questions. Trial test takers will answer 10 randomly selected questions from the test bank of multiple choice questions. All volunteer test takers will have the exact trial test questions and answers along with additional study materials. The multiple choice civics trial test ends when the test taker answers all 10 randomly selected questions. Only one trial test question will appear on the screen at a time. Trial test takers will select their answer choice on the screen and click a button that will move the screen to the next question. This is only a trial test. There's no passing or failing on the multiple choice civics trial test. And the trial test will have no impact on any N400 filed by the trial volunteer trial test taker. Volunteers will not be able to use the trial test results to get their naturalization applications approved from the CBO trial test. Again, we'll go back to the example of the current civics test items. Again, the current civics test items are orally administered. They do not appear on the screen, and the officers read this prompt aloud. The applicant retains this information and then provides the answer. In what we're proposing in the trial multiple choice civics test is a written test that would be displayed on the screen. So the applicants would be able to, in this case, the trial test taker would see it on the screen, right? And there would be one clear, correct answer there. with it. Each trial question has one correct answer choice only, and the correct answer choice will be clearly identified from the incorrect answer choices there. There will be no answer choices that include options like all of the above, none of the above, answer A and C. There will be no answer choices that require trial test takers to choose between multiple answer choices that could be correct. The answer choices assigned to each trial test question will not be released to the CBOs as part of the trial test, but they will have every correct answer and every question. Now I'd like to talk about the external subject matter experts that form the technical advisory group. The contract has been awarded to TESOL. TESOL is the contractor that will facilitate the technical advisory group and will be the contractor who selects the individuals to serve as subject matter experts on the technical advisory group. An individual who wishes to be part of the technical advisory group would have had to been selected by TESOL itself. TESOL posted a public solicitation for external subject matter experts on its website and received 86 applications for the 10 technical advisory group positions. TESOL selected technical advisory group members with previous experience with the USCIS naturalization test redesigns, experts in ESL, including test design for low literacy learners, current practitioners who work with low literacy learners today. TESOL also selected civics technical advisory group members with scholarly expertise in US history and those that worked on national civics and history educational frameworks. TESOL has selected 10 TAG members, technical advisory group members. TESOL will disclose the name of the TAG members with its final report. As of now, the TAG members have a non-disclosure agreement or NDAs and will continue to work without outside pressure. Releasing the name of the technical advisory group members prior to the end of their review could expose them to undue outside influence or requests for information on their ongoing work. We do not want the TAG members to be inundated with emails. USCIS agrees with many stakeholders that a well-qualified and diverse TAG is essential to the test development process. USCIS followed the exact same 30-day timeline that was in the previous 2008 and 2020 technical advisory group contracts. TESOL stated that they were able to assemble the technical advisory group within that time frame, and they have done so. They've set up a very user-friendly application system that took approximately just 20 minutes to fill out. They received 86 applications for the 10 slots. The 2023 technical advisory group, the current technical advisory group, consists of historians from diverse backgrounds. The TAG includes specific SMEs, again, in subject areas from low literacy learners, current practitioners, historians with backgrounds in women's history, African American history, and published professors. The TAG will review the speaking and multiple choice trial tests before and after the trial test, all aspects, rubrics, content, structure, and all aspects of it. Now, for the CBO, the community-based trial test, the first trial test, the phase of the trial test, the community-based organizations will receive trial test educational resources. This includes all the prompts, all the images on the speaking test. This includes, practice speaking test prompts and practice speaking test images on each prompt. Educational resources for the community-based multiple choice civics trial test include the full bank of multiple choice civics trial test questions and correct answer choices. Civics and history handouts that outline all of the content on the multiple choice civics trial test will also be distributed. Thank you. I'll turn it back to our colleagues in the Ombudsman. Sarah?
Thank you, Sean. It's a lot of valuable information. I'd like to transition to a question and answer portion of this engagement. First, I'd like to ask you about the Federal Register notice. And in the FRN, USCIS stated that it is conducting the trial to update the civics test to reflect current best practices in test design and to redesign the civics test into a multiple choice format. Could you please shed light on what these best practices are, how they were determined, and how the multiple choice test aligns with them?
Thank you, Cyril. Great question. USCIS is following the industry practice in test design by conducting a trial test to collect and analyze data before making any decisions on what test, if any, we should consider as part of a subsequent trial test. USCIS's goal is to create a test that's fair, that's transparent, and standardized for all test takers. Conducting a trial test specifically to include low literacy and vulnerable populations is a best practice in all test design. Two main changes to the test that USCIS is considering are using image-based tests and multiple choice tests for the civics. Under the current system, the applicant must demonstrate English proficiency in understanding and speaking by replying to questions posed during the naturalization interview. And the civics test is currently administered with a question posed orally requiring an oral response. For example, a current question is, current question. Under our Constitution, some powers belong to the federal government. What is one power of the federal government? That is a current test item number 41. And the study materials have several possible correct answer choices: to print money, to declare war, to create an army, to make treaties. Okay. Image-based tests are widely used in English as a second language ESL testing, including tests that are designed for those with low English language proficiency. Example of such tests include the Department of Education's National Reporting System that NRS approved, Best Plus 2. That was the example we gave earlier. That's an example of a very common ESL test that's there. This test is widely used by adult educators and is one of the tests approved for recipients of USCIS citizenship and integration grants to administer to their lower level English proficiency students. Multiple choice tests are also widely used to measure civics content knowledge for citizenship. For example, a vast majority of countries in the world that require civics tests for naturalization employ multiple choice tests. Australia, Austria, Canada, Denmark, Norway, the UK. Most countries in the world administer a civics test in order to naturalize, use multiple choice tests. The Department of Education NRS approved CASA's Government and History for Citizenship test is a widely used multiple choice civics test. Multiple choice tests are also the most common and standardized method of testing history and civics content knowledge in a variety of educational settings, K through 12, higher education, and adult basic education. Zero, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Sean. Can you explain why the proposed new speaking test would better evaluate English speaking proficiency than having a USCIS officer ask questions from the N400?
Thank you, Zero. Thank you for that question. So a key principle in designing tests involves standardization, which basically means providing a uniform experience for all test takers. And in this case, applicants. Right. The current speaking test is tied to the officer interview, which is based on the Form N400 application for naturalization. Each naturalization interview is tailored to the individual applicant, which means that the same questions are not necessarily asked to each applicant. The form also contains complex legal terminology and compound sentences throughout every part of the form. The proposed speaking test would allow applicants to know exactly what to study, how, and exactly how to prepare for it. The test would also be aligned to the statutory requirements under INA 312, demonstrating the ability to speak words in ordinary usage. Applicants would be able to receive clear results outlining where they passed and failed. The proposed image-based speaking test also aligns with classroom and assessment practices used commonly with low literacy English language learners.
Thanks, Sean. Yes, sir. How were subject matter experts recruited and selected by TESOL to participate in the technical advisory group?
Great question. So USCIS posted publicly, and the contract was awarded to TESOL. That's the contract to facilitate the technical advisory group. TESOL had the contract for the 2008 design, the 2020 design, and now for the current redesign initiative. TESOL is an organization with a long history with the USCIS naturalization test. TESOL posted a public solicitation for external subject matter experts on its website. They received 86 applications for the 10 technical advisory group positions. TESOL selected technical advisory group subject matter experts with previous experience with USCIS naturalization test redesigns, experts in the English as a second language, including test design experience for low literacy learners, and current practitioners who are in the classroom today with low literacy learners. TESOL selected civics tag members with scholarly expertise in U.S. history and those that worked on national civics and history educational frameworks.
Thanks, Sean. In its Federal Register notice, again published last year, December 15, 2022, USCIS invited public comment on data on the trial testing of the redesigned naturalization test. Has that input been incorporated in the agency's design for the trial testing?
Definitely. We continue to invite stakeholder feedback throughout the process. We have a dedicated mailbox, NATS Redesign 22 at uscis.dhs.gov. That is NATZREDESIGN 22 at uscis.dhs.gov. Stakeholder feedback is shared with USCIS leadership, with our technical advisory group. Our agency is reviewing and analyzing all comments. We also requested volunteers that participate in the trial tests, in the CBO, the community-based trial tests. We have over 230 community-based organizations from 38 states and territories participating. Educators from these community-based organizations are also invited to give feedback on the trial test as well. We have incorporated feedback from our in-person adult citizenship education seminars, national webinars, and our dedicated mailbox that I mentioned earlier in developing the trial test. We will provide the technical advisory group with an opportunity to hear feedback directly from community-based organizations who will volunteer to participate in the trial test. Sarah?
Thank you, sir. In addition to the trial test educational resources that USCIS provides to the volunteer CBOs, could you offer more detail on the type of instruction the agency is providing CBOs and how to administer the trial testing? For instance, will there be a uniform instruction on how CBOs should recruit potential trial test takers?
Yeah, great. So we are extremely grateful to all the organizations, educators, and their adult learners who are taking the time to assist USCIS to improve the citizenship test, right? We absolutely value all your time and efforts in this. We hold regular meetings with the volunteer community-based organizations. When the trial test takes place, we will provide training on how to administer the trial test in a uniform manner. We'll provide a demo link so the organizations can get familiar with the platform, so the educators can familiar familiarize themselves. The volunteer test taker can familiarize themselves. We'll also provide the community-based organizations tip sheets, instruction protocols that they can use to explain to their adult learners that the trial tests are completely voluntary and will have no impact on any N400 filed.
Great, Sean, thanks. And another comment we received is the commenter is seeking the same key commitment from USCIS that it made for the current test and are asking that it will not increase the failure rate. The current test implemented in 2009 has a high pass rate. Any decrease in the current pass rate would have a detrimental impact, according to the commenter, on thousands of immigrants for years to come. When the current test was being developed, USCIS assured stakeholders that it would not decrease the pass rate. USCIS met this commitment by carefully piloting the new test prior to implementation and to conducting a detailed record study after implementation to document its impact on pass-fail rates. The record study was shared with stakeholders. Can you comment on that, please?
Yes, too. So USCIS shares these exact same concerns. USCIS will track performance data from the second phase of the trial test conducted at field offices. If we get to that stage, we will share the data similar to what was done in 2009 after the rollout of the current test, that's today's test that's there. With technology advancement, USCIS may also be able to share even more data and analysis than what was shared in 2009. Our external subject matter expert contract facilitator, TSOL, has also selected a leading psychometrician that has national experience in calculating such data like pass rates to be on the technical advisory group as well.
Great, thanks. Commenters are also concerned that most of the applicants who volunteer to participate in the trial test will be those with higher levels of education and English proficiency. They believe this could skew the results and cause the new test to have a negative impact on pass rates for vulnerable populations or certain ethnic groups. How will USCIS ensure that the trial sites and participants are representative of all applicants, reflecting the full regional, national origin, age, and linguistic skill diversity of lawful permanent residents throughout the nation?
Thank you. Great question. Again, USCIS shares this same concern as well, and we've adopted a phase 1 community-based organization trial test model that encourages organizations that serve low literacy learners to participate. Again, we have over 230 organizations that have volunteered for the trial test, and many of these organizations serve low literacy learners. We will take into account regional diversity, national origin, linguistic background, age, and English proficiency levels in the CBO community-based organization trial test. Again, TSOL has also selected technical advisory group subject matter experts that are active educators in low literacy classrooms. As part of the data analysis, we will assess the positive and negative impacts on various demographics to determine the next steps and necessary adjustments for the second phase of the trial test.
Thank you. Here's another comment that would be helpful if you addressed. If USCIS intends to use a written multiple choice civics test, the commenter believes that audio should be provided for the questions and answer choices as an option to accommodate applicants with different skill sets or special needs, such as low vision or visual processing issues. Without the audio option, the commenter states that the civics test would become a second and more difficult reading test and pose an additional hurdle for many applicants. The commenter would also like to know how USCIS envisions administering a multiple choice civics test to applicants who qualify for an English exemption.
Great question. So USCIS, we will take into consideration all recommendations for implementation after the trial test. We'll share all of these recommendations are shared with the technical advisory group as well, and TSOL that's there. And currently, there is no proposed change to the law surrounding language exempt applicants. They would still be exempt.
Thank you. One commenter states that if USCIS delinks the English speaking test from the N400 interview, then it should allow interpreters to assist with the interview when needed. Otherwise, the interview could turn into a de facto additional speaking test. Is this correct?
Thanks, sir. I'm really glad you asked this question. Here I want to be clear and say USCIS is not proposing a scenario with 2 speaking tests. It has never been the intent. We're only conducting a trial test of a potential alternative speaking test. We're aligned with the principle of having only 1 speaking test. That's stated here with it. For any future updates on implementation, please see upcoming Federal Register notices that are announced in the Federal Registry, and to see if there's any notices there in the future.
Thanks, Sean. And we could put links to the Federal Register in the chat here in the Q&A.
Thank you.
To be helpful to the audience, as well as the other email addresses. This will all be available on our website. This recording and these materials will be available on our website, so people can get all these email addresses and links there as well. Another question we have for you, Sean, is it would be helpful to know how USCIS envisions addressing challenges with their picture format for the speaking test, such as vision problems, again, i.e. low vision or color blindness or cultural differences in perceptions. People are concerned that a picture format could unfairly impact these applicants. For example, we know that people interpret pictures very differently depending on their cultural background. Commenters believe that USCIS should release the bank of pictures vocabulary in the test prompts to help educators effectively prepare their students. The bank of pictures to study should be kept to a reasonable number. Also, commenters want to know what a passing response would look like, so USCIS should give examples of acceptable responses. Sean, can you please elaborate on this?
Absolutely. The USCIS test development approach aligns with this approach as well. USCIS will accommodate all disabilities as we do in current practice. TESOL has specifically selected tag members that are experts and that have developed image-based tests and have experience designing rubrics that accommodate a variety of responses there. USCIS also aligns with the suggestion to release a reasonable amount of content and detailed education materials. The tag, again, will be providing recommendations on all of these aspects as well.
Thanks, Sean. A lot of great comments and questions here, but another one is spoken responses to questions about an image should be assessed only with regard to use of relevant vocabulary, quote unquote, words in ordinary usage, and quote unquote, simple words and phrases as required by the statute. Other areas of language proficiency, such as pronunciation, grammar, syntax, or fluency, should not be part of that assessment. Sean, could you elaborate on the development of the speaking test rubric?
Yes. USCIS, again, we share this exact same approach to creating the scoring rubric. At this time, we have no plans to add pronunciation, grammar, syntax, or fluency to the rubric. In addition, on the technical advisory group, we have specific subject matter experts who are also reviewing this, and they have created national rubrics for low literacy learners, and those that have created the current reading and writing test rubrics. We have those subject matter experts also on our technical advisory group.
Great, thanks. Last question, Sean. Where can interested parties go for more information or resources, and how can stakeholders provide feedback?
Yes, we have few. I'm happy to share these links as well. For additional information and resources on the naturalization test redesign, we have a dedicated web page on the Citizenship Resource Center. It is the Naturalization Test Redesign Development 2022. Also, the Federal Register notices, the formal notices that are published, we'll also be able to provide you links to those as well. We also welcome feedback throughout the process here, right? So just to highlight some various ways that we would love feedback, and also different times and opportunities to give feedback. So one, I mentioned we have that dedicated mailbox, right? The dedicated mailbox, there is the NATS Redesign 22 at USCIS.DHS.gov. That's there. Just one moment, and we'll put this up on a slide deck as well for all of you there to see as well, right? The TSOL report, after it's published, there you'll see it on your screen. The TSOL of the technical advisory group, the external subject matter experts, they will also be publishing a report, as you saw on the timeline near the end of the year. We welcome feedback on that report as well. You can send it to the inbox that's listed above there with it. We also specifically would love to hear from all the educators that are participating in the community-based trial tests there. So all those educators there. And of course, there will be a Federal Register notice with whatever decision USCIS makes, whether we'll move forward or not, whatever decisions USCIS makes, get published on the Federal Register, and we welcome any comments there as well on the Federal Register notice there with it. If the agency moves forward to the next steps and there's a field office trial test 2 and phase 2, again, when that data is published and analyzed there with it and shared, we would also welcome comments there as well. So throughout the process, always welcome.
Great, Sean. And I just want to say, thanks again to you, to Bertha, our USCIS colleagues, for the helpful information you shared on the test redesign trial. We appreciate the time you spent with us this afternoon. I want to thank the audience who took the time to join us for today's session and the valuable comments we received in advance. And, USCIS has taken the time to answer some of those comments. But for listeners who submitted questions today, please note that we will share all the questions submitted with our USCIS colleagues. And again, to reiterate, we will post the materials from today's webinar, including a summary, recording, presentation, and relevant questions and answers on issues that have been raised over the course of the redesign project on our website. All the links, all the email addresses, there's a lot of them we know will be in there. And as always, we welcome your feedback on other emerging issues, and we'll continue sharing these challenges with USCIS as the agency seeks to make applying for immigration benefits more efficient, secure, and convenient. If you need to email our office, the CIS Ombudsman, regarding a case assistance request, the email address is, again, CISombudsman, CISOMBUDSMAN @hq.dhs.gov. For information relating to stakeholder engagements, the email address is CISombudsman.publicaffairs@hq.dhs.gov. But again, this is all on our website, and we'll be posting this presentation on our website. We have expanded, just a point of note, our outreach efforts to have a social media presence. So we are now on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So please take a moment to visit our pages and click like or follow to ensure you see all of our posts. Similarly, we encourage you to visit our outreach page at www.dhs.gov/outreach to find invitations to upcoming webinars, read summaries of previous engagements, like this one will be, and take our CIS Ombudsman Customer Satisfaction Survey. And this concludes today's webinar. Thank you and have a great day.